Oh, boy, howdy. I got to tell you, the AEW program the other night, as I said earlier, they ought to give you study notes, maybe a PowerPoint presentation, some pie charts would good. Well, we were talking earlier in the program about the TNA agent reports and, how Mark Booker's book things. Marks like Russo, the previous generation Marks, and like Tony, they see all these moments in their head and these, wow, this will be great. These will attack each other in the back and they'll fight and they'll break furniture and this will happen. And they just can't not only restrain themselves from doing it so constantly that it becomes meaningless, or figure out the right people to do it with, or in many cases, lay it out so that if it had a chance of being good, if it was done properly, they leave all the loopholes because they don't have any experience with actually making shit make sense. So some things never change. We were in the same position, except TNA in 2009 was doing 3 times the viewership of what they've got right now. But Tony Khan is the kind of guy that would book the 2 top baby faces to have a 50-year-old guy with broken ribs roll up the 300-pound beast that's trying to get over. I know I said it the other way around before, but and also a roll up with broken ribs, Brian. I just thought of that. Is that the finish you'd want to use if your ribs were broken? Let me just roll this 300-pound guy up.
I may avoid
right
that
over the
one.
top of me.
Yeah, I may avoid that one.
But anyway, we were in Seattle for the Come Back to Reality edition of AEW Dynamite. They weren't in Mexico anymore, and they weren't in Kansas anymore either. They were back to reality. I think they had, 1,800 people in Seattle, bless them.
It may have been a little more than that, I think, but in that range.
That's what Uncle Dave said.
Oh, did he? Oh, I thought it was
I think that's what Uncle Dave said, so maybe we ought to take that one with a grain of salt.
Well, we'll find out when we do the ratings. We'll see what the numbers are, and I thought it was a little higher, but I could be completely wrong.
That counted the people also working a concession stand. But again, this whole show, it's just people doing things. They're doing the walk-ins, because now since WWE has their stars walk in the building on camera, they do the walk-ins also. But apparently we're to believe it. Tony Storm just, at least the walk-ins in the WWE many times are, you can tell it's earlier that day they came in the building, and then they'll have somebody walk all the way through and go out. But it's just Tony Storm. Here she comes, and Mercedes Mone comes in from the blind side and just jumps on her and shoved, because Tony Storm has Luther, the butler, with her. And Mercedes shoves Luther down, and he takes like a pratfall, and he's never seen again. Did she give him the fucking vibrating palm strike that the fucking Kung Fu masters gave Bruce Lee to, get even for him revealing the secrets? How does this grown adult 280-pound human waterbed of a man be fucking wiped out forever by the girl shoving him down? And then they fight into the arena, and they have a fake fight on the stage forever. And then finally, 6 male referees run out on the stage and Mercedes has the hold on Tony Storm and is cranking on her, and they're screaming, please stop, please stop. There's 6 men there. It's a 125-pound girl. Pull her off. But are they determined now to, Tony Storm is the only one they've got that's really over? Are they determined to just make her look like an idiot too? And she got saved by Mina Mellons. And Mercedes was so scared, she backed up 20 feet, grabbed the microphone, and made a little statement to him. And Mina was just squatting there next to Tony, like, oh, you hurt her. Why can't they close up any of the loopholes and any of the logic? I thought Mercedes had her own writer, Will Wheaton. Shouldn't he be
No, you're thinking
staying up on?
it was Will Washington, and he wasn't her writer. He was Swerve's writer.
I thought she got her own writers too.
Pepper Day.
Ja, I'm sorry. She has a writer, but I got the wrong writer. It's Alexandra Pepperday that's her writer. Shouldn't Pepperday be fucking staying up thinking about ways we can close the loopholes and all this fucking goofy logic?
Well, I don't know. Here's a loophole. Let me ask you about a loophole that may or may not close. If the rumors are true that Tony Khan sees the value in not bringing Chris Jericho back, does Luther come back?
Oh, good Lord. I forgot Luther's not one of the Lollipop Guild. He was one of the Canadian contingent, right?
That's right, the Canadian friends.
Well, in that case, I don't, but at the same time, Tony might think he'll be offended. But Jesus Christ. So then, again, I talked about PowerPoint presentation, notes. Help me explain some of these things. The Buckaroos show up on camera, the Hardley Boys, Maddie and Nikki, and they use their EVP power to move Osprey and Swerve's match up to right now from later on in the show, so that they have to come out all unprepared and still tying their shoes and blah. Have we ever established why are they allowed to do these things? The EVPs, Tony is right there.
Yeah.
He can overrule whatever. And later on in the program, within 10 seconds of two guys have an interaction, he's booked the match for next week. So why doesn't he just come out and say, no, you guys are being pricks and it's my company and that's not right. So don't do that. Have we ever gotten a reason why that cannot take place?
No, they beat him up, and then no one really cared, so that kind of went away. The Bucks weren't getting over as the right kind of heels. It was the, we don't want to watch this heels, not the, oh my God, they're heels. I can't wait to see someone beat them up. Person beat him up and it wasn't filmed. It was in the back. It was fucking CM Punk. But, they've established that Tony's that gorilla. They've established just recently with MJF and Shelton. Tony was back there like a ventriloquist dummy, just all of his motions. So they've established that. How could they say these things and what could they do to make it happen? And why doesn't Tony overrule it?
They haven't even come out and produced a contract that Tony was stupid enough to sign in 2021 that gave them the ability to do this, and that, and the other thing. They just, it's inexplicable. So anyway, here comes Osprey and Swerve to come out for their match early, and it's against Blake Christian and Lee Johnson. And I know you're never going to believe this, Brian, but they had a competitive match. The two top baby faces had all they could handle from these two guys that have never had a television win. And the Buckaroos came to ringside for a break. They went through a break with this, but they come to ringside to fucking watch, right? So then finally, Swerve makes a comeback. He hit the heels in some fashion, whether a strike or a kick or whatever the fuck, 9 times before either one of them fell down. And when they did fall down, it was he shoved the guy out of the corner so he could run and kick at him again. And then he won with a kick to the head. And then Swerve and Osprey tried to go after the Hardley Boys, but security was right there and held them back and got in between so there could be no violence. So then they had to challenge them to a tag match at All In, and Osprey had his garbage disposal voice cranked up to high on this one. But now Osprey and Swerve at their big stadium show and pay-per-view are tied up in a match that won't contribute a single dime to the take. And they're putting the EVP titles on the line, I think, because of Osprey's voice, but the announcers backed it up. But what does that mean? If the baby faces win, they're the EVPs? Or if they beat the Bucks can't be EVPs anymore? Is this a way to finish off the whole goofy thing because of the reasons we just said? It's never made any sense.
Is that how you can get an executive position? I challenged Tony Khan to a fight.
Yeah, well, yeah. I'll take that one.
I'll fight Tony Khan to run the company.
I'll take that one, and even at my age. But and by the way, and here's something that's going to be a thing we'll talk about. The security was right there. They've shot themselves in the foot in another way on this program. Because indiscriminately, there is no rhyme or reason to whether security and referees come instantly on the slightest hint of a violent altercation, or a guy can be goddamn ravaged and have his intestines pulled out through his sphincter by a fish hook for 10 minutes and nobody comes out. And there's no rhyme or reason or logic to why either one happens. They've established that it's because each person or entity is coming up with their own angles and laying their own shit out, and there's no supervising producer, as I was attempting to be in those agent reports that we read, or anybody thinking about the show overall. And you've got to establish a baseline with, here is how we respond to incidents like this. And it's got to be somewhere about, oh my God, we were caught unawares. It took us a few seconds to scramble out there, whatever. But there's ways you can set it up and you can still get your point across, but you just can't take 5 minutes to do all this goofy shit that by the time when you're trying to get a heat and an angle and it takes 5 fucking minutes and nobody's trying to stop it and the baby face is just laying there, you ain't going to get any son of a bitch violent enough to come over the rail in that situation. The heat it's not urgent heat. That's what they're doing, stage plays instead of angles. And they could stagger their run-ins while I'm talking about it also with the security, where you don't, the 12 guys are not just standing by.
Yeah, really.
You know, first the 2 or 3 referees come, holy shit, what's going on? And maybe the bells ring a ding, ding, ding. And then a couple of T-shirt security guys are coming down. Oh my gosh, we got to stop this. And hey, Joe and Fred, 2 more come down. Then maybe a couple of the fucking job guys with no shirt on, so the people in the cheap seats can tell they're wrestlers. And they come down there and get leveled or whatever. But it's a gradual thing where you're building the scene and you're building the urgency rather than, here they all are. They can't do anything, over and over. There's fresh hope coming in. Things like that. Anyway, so what is the Oblada is friends with Trent and Rocky, and they all have some kind of past apparently in Japan with the Buckaroos. And at one point, Oblada was in the Lollipop Guild, but now he's in the Callis family right now.
That's right.
But Trent and Rocky are in a group in Japan with him.
Chaos.
The Buckaroos suspended Swerve and Osprey because they attacked the EVPs. Well, then Oblada came in and introduced them to his friends Trent and Rocky, but we know them well. We've got a past. What is their past? Were they all rent boys together in the red light district of Osaka? What was going on?
I don't know what they did, but obviously they all have a New Japan past.
Well, they were calling Ibushi Kenny's golden lover. And I know that was the folks, for those of you who live in the normal world, the name of the tag team that Kenny Olivier and his friend Kota Ibushi, Ibushi, the name of their tag team was the Golden Lovers. Not the Midnight Express, the Road Warriors, the Powers of Pain, the Brainbusters, the Golden Lovers. But this is American television. 10 years later, they've seen Ibushi like 3 times before he crippled himself and's been off for 2 years. Isn't it off-putting to any normal person who would try to watch this program when they're talking about Ibushi being the golden lover of another one of the baby faces?
Yeah, I don't think it resonates. I don't think Ibushi resonates, but I don't think it resonates.
Well, Ibushi was about to resonate because this was his big return against Trent. And I mean, he doesn't look as pudgy as he did the last time we saw him. Remember, we remarked on the pudge, but is he 5'4"? I don't know if I would bet on him against the outlaw Japanese girls.
No, he's not that short. He's not that short.
He looked like if the Beatles had come from Nagasaki, he looks like the Pete Best of the group.
Well, again, now you always say that, but you forget Pete Best never had a mop top. That's why he really didn't fit in the same way that Ringo did. But, he comes out there, he's got his mop top. He looks like he's in better shape than the last time we saw him, both in America when he was pudgy and in Japan where he broke his feet. And he just has no, it's not even charisma, no reaction, no pulse.
Personality.
It's just like a guy in a coma walking out. He has like the reactions of like a wrestling character in a video game 25 years ago. Like they didn't have the graphics yet to give them good react. He just walks out there just all dull, and he gets in there. And again, I mean, the kicks looked okay, but everything about this was just, I don't think Ibushi resonates in America, and I don't think he will.
And that's the thing is, after he goes 8 minutes or whatever with Trent, and by the way, if Take a Shit ain't getting paid what Ibushi is, if I was him, I'd be pissed. Because again, this guy did little of whatever. But 8 minutes, he wins with a knee lift, and then Oblada comes out, and they stared at each other. They just stared at each and all 1,800 people in Seattle are going, holy shit, holy shit. Holy shit, for what reason? Big shit, big shit. Okada hasn't had a good match yet, and it probably ain't going to try. And this little short, squat black hole of charisma that he's nose to nose with, what do they think they're going to see? Because they ain't going to see it. And then Okada walks out, and Tony sends the word within 10 seconds next week. Okada versus Ibushi. What in the world is that going to look like? One guy...
598,000 viewers.
But one guy won't fall down, and the other guy probably shouldn't or he'll hurt himself again. What do they think they're going to see that's a holy shit moment from these two?
That makes me want to see it, but the problem is it'll probably be a big ball of nothing. I don't remember where they are. It depends on the crowd, too. But yeah, Ibushi has this blah match, and then they stare at each other, right in each other's faces, and no one does anything. Because Ibushi's defending the honor of Kenny, who was previously hurt. You know what this really is? If you think about everything right now happening with the Bucks, who are pushed despite how little they mean to the business of AEW. Omega, who's in the middle of a push right now and doing this thing with Okada, his longtime opponent from 10 years ago. Adam Page getting his run. Ibushi showing back up for the stadium. It's the last hurrah of that gang. You know what I mean? It's the...
You promise?
In terms of age, in terms of everything, it's the last hurrah of that little clique of weirdos. And I think we're going to have to sit through it for a little while.
Well, speaking of a clique of weirdos, the next match was Ricochet and AR Fox against Kevin Knight and Hong Kong Phooey, who are now going by the tag team name Jet Speed. Because Hong Kong Phooey is Speedball and Kevin Knight was Jet Blue, whatever. Jet something. The Jet. Benny and the Jets.
The Jet.
Kevin and the
Knight.
Jets.
Yeah, I guess that's what it is.
So this was recess for the kids, and there's another story that Ricochet is trying to recruit him a group, but then he teamed up with AR Fox and then walked out on him and left him to get beat. And old Spitball's still doing his thing. And so anyway, they win the match, and then, my God, they let these two talk. Actually, Kevin Knight ain't bad. He's got more oomph, but old Hong Kong, Jesus, what a nerd. I mean, I'm just sorry. It's just, what a fucking nerd. And you just want to slap him. That voice and that face. And he's doing a promo on the tag team. They still want a tag team title match with the Hurt Syndicate. Explain to me how it shouldn't be against any criminal statute in the country for either Bobby Lashley or Shelton Benjamin to fight this little squidget. So
in a stadium.
And in the Hurt Syndicate attacks them and beats up the kids in the entrance and set up a table. And they put Kevin Knight on the table, and Lashley choked Hong Kong Phooey, or choke slammed him, threw Kevin Knight on the table. And then MVP cut the promo on the baby faces while they were laying there. It wasn't as bad as Cena and Punk because it didn't last 10 minutes, and these are preliminary cannon fodder guys. But then when they go to the ring and cut the promo, MVP apparently agreed to give them the tag team title match if they can stand up. And I assume they stood up because they were gone by the next segment. So, what the fuck? Seriously. They've got a tag team that's over, that gets a reaction, looks like $1 million, looks like grown adult athletes. And the only thing they can program them with is children that are so green they can't even take advantage of all the spots that Lashley and Benjamin are trying to give them. And MVP's out there begging somebody to somebody stand up, a tag team. My God, they may have to call TNA or something.
Well, I don't know if that's going to work right now, but
I mean, some other company.
That's the problem. What companies can Tony call? CMLL and New Japan.
Jesus Christ. So then MJF did a promo and the fans booed the shit out of him. But next week, he's going to be in a qualifying match where the winner goes into the men's casino gauntlet match at All In, where the winner of that gets a guaranteed title shot. MJF, another of their money ball players, if they have any, is in a meaningless casino bullshit match on pay-per-view because they can't. They're so creatively bereft at this point that they can't set up money matches for their tag team champions. They can't set up money matches for MJF. They can't set up money matches. All they can do is set up dream matches that the same people that like this kind of thing buy every month. There is no growth, and they're running out of the dream matches. And then Mark Briscoe's music interrupted. And he actually came out and said, well, you're going long. I need to get in the ring for my match. And then he and MJF start going back and forth. And MJF calls him a blue-collar bitch. And Briscoe empathized with MJF. The fans actually chanted empathy because he feels insufficient with his little kosher pickle. And then the fans chant kosher pickle. This is a Saturday Night Live sketch. I think Mark Briscoe's great. I think MJF's great. But they come out, it went too long. They're being funny. The fans then amuse themselves by chanting about MJF's small penis. And then MVP says, let's just go watch Briscoe do what he does best, which is lose. So for the first time in history, Briscoe wins. He won a four-way, Brian. This is all interconnected. It's all the same thing going on. He won a four-way match versus Bandito, Roderick Strong, and Take a Shit for the number one spot in the Casino Gauntlet match. Which seems to me like that would be punishment to get the number one spot, because then you got to fight all the other guys. But who says this is supposed to fucking be in any way explicable? So what started at the first of that? Who was out first? Was it the
Well,
it was
it
the
depends
baby faces?
Yeah, it depends on what you consider the start of that.
The babyface underneath babyface team had a match which they won, and then they got the shit kicked out of them by the people that they're wrestling on the pay-per-view, who did a promo, who then were interrupted by the guy that was in the next match. And then that guy had a match and won the chance to be in another match. Any thoughts?
Very much like Mr. Show with the transitions from one thing right to another. You got to appreciate that. I hear what you're saying. MJF's a proven draw for them. Also, he's had great matches on big shows. Why isn't he in a high-profile match? If they did put him in one, it would kind of have to happen out of nowhere. The Hurt Syndicate, they can't put in one because they don't have opponents.
Well, really, MJF doesn't have an opponent either set up for him. And this MJF joining the Hurt Syndicate has been one of the only entertaining things, that have actually, for a wrestling fan instead of a fucking spot monkey on this show. But because their roster of baby faces is so weak and feckless and impotent and erectily dysfunctioned, there's nobody you want to see him fight.
So I think, unfortunately, he ends up in this Casino Gauntlet match, whatever that is, a ladder match. I think that's what it is. It's something. You have to retrieve something. I don't remember.
Oh, they got to grab the big poker chip.
Oh, that's right. It was a poker chip. If he wins it, it creates a good dynamic going forward with him and the Hurt Syndicate and him having this ability to get a title match anytime he wants, which obviously is a copy of Money in the Bank.
But then, which world champion would he want to wrestle for real? Moxley or fucking Page? He's sitting there going, which one of these two jack-offs do I think I can get any kind of a match out of?
And the idea they're setting up something, at least it looks like it, with him and Mark Brisco. I don't want to get my hopes up. It could be promising. I mean, they've booked Mark Brisco so poorly, and I think, unfortunately, they get a little bit of false security that because he's over and we have him lose every week, we could do that with everyone we bring in now. Just book them, they'll lose, and eventually people will like them. But, yeah, I mean...
The feel sorry heat.
The MJF Hurt Syndicate stuff has been the highlight of the show, and in a lot of cases, the highest rated segment of the show. In a lot of cases, the Mystico match was the highest rated segments of that show. And it's almost like I said before, like the Codyverse. It exists like in a little universe of its own within the wider universe. If MJF all of a sudden has title demand abilities, yeah, he can get him as soon as he wants if he wins that match. It kind of ties him into the bigger picture. But again, who are the Hurt Syndicate gonna wrestle? That's the big question still, but we'll get there, I guess.
Well, and then they of course, they got to do what the big boys do. You're going to have a men's casino gauntlet match. You're going to have a women's casino gauntlet match. Can't wait for that. And, of course, they had a four-way to determine who was the number one spot in that, with Statlander versus Athena versus Willow versus Thunder Rosa. And the highlight of that for me was, in full view of the referee, Marina Shafir walks down to distract Willow, and Wheeler Useless pops into the ring, and he and Willow start doing a running spot, which ends with Willow giving him the pounce, and he fucking flies away, and then Willow beats Statlander. But again, it just looks so ridiculous. And the overused crutch of the uncreative mind, no DQ. Let's just have one of the guys run in and do a fucking spot in the girls' match in front of the fucking referee, and then we'll do the finish later. You fucking morons. And then, Brian, it came time for our main event of the evening. Is it just me, or is it a lot of people saying it on Twitter that good old Frank Mortis is getting a lot more big main event matches now that he's publicly been seen going out and dating Mercedes Mone? Is there nepotism going on? Is he a Nepo bull? What is that?
Would it be a Nepo beast? I mean, why'd you go right to bull? He's the beast Mortis.
Well,
not the bull
but
Mortis.
he's wearing a bull head, isn't he? Or what head is that of an animal?
I don't know for sure, but I know it's a beast.
It might be a bison.
It could be a.
It could. Well, no. Think about this now. What kind of animal is that? That he's wearing the head of? Is it a bison? Is it a buffalo? Is it just a regular old bull? One of them big old humpback bulls down in Texas? And if so, is that the common thread that has linked these two little crazy kids and star-crossed lovers together? You got a bull, you got a camel. They're made for each other.
Does he do promos? Have we ever heard him talk? Can he speak English? Or are you going to get like
I don't know,
like,
but you're
going to get that Charlotte Andrade thing where it's like you can't imagine him ever having a conversation.
Well, but here's the thing. I want to hear him give a closing argument in Spanish, but with the bull head on his head. In gimmick, but because he's a lawyer. They've established this. He's a lawyer.
Frank.
So Frank the lawyer, I want him to dress up in full rigor mortis outfit here with the bull head and everything, and then give a closing argument in Spanish.
Man,
I think that would be fantastic.
To answer your question, I thought about it. I hate to say I did, but I obviously did. I thought about it a couple weeks ago. I thought about it during the Mexico show where he filled in for, it was like all the top heels in the company and him. It was like Death Riders, Young Bucks, and Beast Mortos. It's like, yeah, it does seem like since word came out that he was dating Mercedes Moné, and I can't wait to read the next issue of Mercedes Moné's Moné Mag for all inside scoop on this.
Hey, this time she's not going to be lost in the fucking woods. She's going to be lost out in the bull pasture.
Well, it definitely seems noticeable now that, yeah, this guy's getting used in a very nice position for someone that is fine, I guess, for AEW mid-card.
Midnight at the Oasis, put your camel to bed. So Hangnail Page wrestled Frank Rigor Mortis in the main event, which ran, of course, past 10 o'clock because they all do. And then Page beat him with the buckshot. But then the lights went out. And the lights were out for a little while. I didn't time it exactly as to the number of seconds, but Brian, you can vouch for me. Tell me if I'm not depicting this correctly, but while the lights were out, the announcers were still talking. They were saying, folks, we're still on the air. The lights have gone out for some reason, right? You can hear the people murmuring in the arena. The audio is unmarred. It's exactly the same as it would be. We just got a black screen. Is that a fair appraisal?
Yeah, fair appraisal.
Okay, well, then the lights come back on. And now in the middle of the ring where it's just been Paige standing there when the lights went off, now Paige is down on both knees. And there are Maddie and Nikki, the Hardley boys, holding each of his hands, ready to give him their little knee lift that they do. The problem is, in no time during the time the lights were off, did you hear any struggle, any noise, any "who are you?" any "get down on your knees,"
a bump,
any "suck it, bitch," any bump, any struggle or conflict of any kind. Total silence from the ring, and they've established all the microphones are still on. You can hear the people, you can hear everything. And then when the lights come back on, he's on his knees he's looking up at him and he goes, "Oh my God." And they look at the people to milk it. And then they draw back and then they give him the knee lift. He's a foot taller than either one of these guys. All he had to do, they're just holding his hands. All he had to do was stand up, jerk him off balance. Hey, come here, you little pricks. Bam. No wonder they get the shit kicked out of them every time they get in a fight. None of these fuckers know how to fight. But what was that? He just looks up horrified like, "Oh, don't do this to me," in 10 seconds.
Yeah, that face he made was ridiculous.
It was like they had guns pointed at him. But also, again, no effort to move. Oh my God, I can't imagine how painful this thing you're going to do to me in the next 14 seconds will be.
How did they get him down?
How'd they get him down?
Why did it make no noise? Why didn't he yell? Why didn't he yelp? Something. So, I mean, again, how did he get down? It took them a while. I know Tony loves it because ECW did it with the lights going out, but it's so lame. And all the stuff with the Bucks is lame. And that wasn't even the end of it. It somehow got worse.
Oh, yeah. Well, then the music plays, and here comes Dick the Boozer and the Boar Horseman, except for Claudio, who's... I read on the internet, he asked for time off, but he's not injured. Maybe he's just fed up. I don't know. But they come out and get in the ring, and everybody stands there because Paige is selling dead from this shitty double knee lift. Again, these people are hit with chairs and thrown through furniture and dive off balconies, and they're up in seconds. But this little shitty knee lift from these two children that never connects anyway. And he's laying there dead. And the heels stand there until Moxley brings out a logging chain and puts it around Paige's neck and gets him in a stationary choke. Where he's not throttling him or shaking him around. There's no motion. He's just twisting it. And again, nobody trying to help. As we talked about earlier, it's either feast or famine. Either the security is there in a heartbeat, or they'll let people commit aggravated mayhem for 15 minutes. Well, this time we've established that there's not only a bunch of referees, but we've also established there's a bunch of security. That nobody came out until finally, here comes Samoa Joe and Hobbs and Shapoopy. But they can't get in the ring because the heels are playing King of the Hill and won't let them in the ring. And then finally, Osprey comes out, and suddenly just he just dives right in, and the heels leave, and everybody stands around. And everybody's mad at everybody. Nobody really remembers why. A lot of things take place. You can't process it all. There's matchups going on at the pay-per-view, but we still don't even know what is going to be the point of this briefcase. When they open the briefcase and the belt isn't there, is it going to lead us into some fabulous other dimension of creativity? What the fuck is going on here?
That would be interesting. They open the briefcase, there's nothing in there, and then Renee comes out wearing the belt. Maybe they could do that.
I thought you were going to say Renee would come out of the briefcase. Now that I'd pay to see.
I don't know. That'd be pretty magical.
She did used to be a contortionist in her younger days. She was able to be folded up into a small wallet and credit card holder.
I think despite people claiming that the Moxley title run has been a big success, people are ignoring the fact.
Who claimed that?
Oh, no. Dave Meltzer has claimed it. Other people have claimed it, that his title run has led to a business increase, not a business decrease. But it's been a complete creative failure. AEW's own fans hate it. And I think fans right now have their fingers crossed that hopefully we're in the last days of it, but
then we end up with Paige.
I'm not going to put money on that either. I'm not, we'll see what happens, but this stuff has got to go away. Then after that, we're going to get Paige in the Bucks because that's what we need. More of that shit.
Maybe they could program Paige with Mina Melons.
Nick Jackson has never looked like a wrestler. He's never looked less like a wrestler than he does right now. He has no shape to him. His hair that was always receding has receded to a whole new degree right now. He looks ridiculous.
When you accidentally drop.
Yeah, he has to wear the full bodysuit like Randy Savage when he got off steroids. This guy wasn't on steroids. Imagine what it looks like. It's just not good.
When you accidentally drop a glob of face lotion in a sink of water, that type of indiscriminate shape where it just kind of floats around, that's what you're saying Nick Jackson's body looks like?
I think that's part of it, yeah. The fact that they can't talk, that the promos suck, that the fans don't have the right kind of heel reaction to them. I think there's a whole number of things, and yeah, I think they're going to double down on all that for one last run for all these people before their bodies break down and they're not worth what Tony's paying them.
Well, they've never been worth what Tony's paying them, but that hadn't stopped him before now. But again, if I was taking shit, I would say, okay, you're giving Okada how much, and you're giving Ibushi how much, and what about me, boss? I'm still young and able to fall down.
For real? I'd say if you want me to stay, you pay me now for my future.
Well, he's paying everybody else for their past.
That's right.
Well, if what other place, I'll say this and we'll move along to if anybody watched this fiasco, but in what other company of any endeavor in the world can you actually get a lot of money, a guaranteed job, and a nice contract because you used to be good at the thing that they did 10 or 15 years ago? Where? How? When? Why?
Well, there are talentless executives who always get a second or third chance. A lot of it's about relationships. And of course, that's the AEW story. A lot of it's about relationships, but that was AEW Dynamite.
Hey, that guy used to be great 20 years ago. Let's fucking put him on the team. All righty. Speaking of the team, Brian, before we talk about the Nielsen team that evaluated this broadcast, what's going on from the team at the Arcadian Vanguard Network this week?
Another fine week of shows on the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network. Get information about all the shows on Twitter at Superpodcast or on Facebook at facebook.com/Arcadian Vanguard. Of course, every day, get the wrestling news for free. Get your wrestling news from thewrestlingnews.com or wherever you find your favorite podcast. No clickbait, no paywall, just the wrestling news. Also want to make mention of Shut Up and Wrestle with Brian Solomon. He continues his look at NWA champions of the past. This time, Lou Thesz, talking with someone who trained with Lou Thesz, Mark Fleming.
Mark Fleming.
Hear that today. Did you ever work? He worked
Yes.
Crockett tapings, yeah.
Oh, yeah, where he was still there in 85. Mark's from Norfolk.
I believe so.
Yes.
We'll hear more from him and hear more about Lou Thesz, SUAWpod.com or Shut Up and Wrestle with Brian Solomon, wherever you find your favorite podcasts. And of course, the 605 Super Podcast, The Mothership! Go through the archive, 605pod.com, available wherever you find your favorite podcasts.
The Mothership. See, that sounds like a sale to me. We're ringing these bad boys up. That sounds like a reason to give somebody some money to stop. What did anybody watch the program this past Wednesday before we go?
Well, Jim, let's go to the ratings. AEW Dynamite, June 25th, 2025. To answer your question from earlier, according to WrestleTix, 2,370 tickets distributed in Kent, Washington, from 8 to 10:08 p.m.
Now, wait a minute. Okay, hold on here a second, though, because I swear, wait a minute. They did 2 shows, didn't they? They did 2 shows there in Seattle at that particular location. And one of those drew 1,800 people.
Outside of Seattle.
And how far outside, by the way?
Is it
what he's doing? Like it's 70 miles or what?
Kent, Washington. I don't know where that is.
Well, that's Kent, Washington. They said Seattle on the graphic. Wait a minute. Hold on. Hold on. I got something.
It is part of the Seattle, Tacoma, Bellevue metropolitan area.
Okay, June 21st, it was the Collision and Ring of Honor tapings in Kent, Washington that did 1894. And then the Dynamite taping did 2370. So together, put that together, that's about 4,200. That's about 1/3 of the amount of people that fucking WWE did on Raw the other night. But go ahead.
Well, let's go to the numbers from 8 to 10:08 p.m. On average, watched by 613,000 viewers.
Ouch! We are back to reality. And now, I still, otherwise than the curiosity factor, will let other people figure out why that an extra 100 and some thousand people watched last week. But the tournaments are all done and over with, right? Did they have any? Just they had one competition-free week, and then boy, they got killed with high-rated programs, or did they just go back to normal without being in Mexico for a big show?
Maybe a mix of things. It was also the NBA draft, which is a big deal on ESPN. But let's go to Tony's draft. These are the quarter hour.
It's getting a little drafty in here now. We can't even fucking fight the draft now. I guess that's a strange way of phrasing that, but go ahead.
Well, these are the quarter hours. These were compiled by WrestleNomics. Quarter 1, 8 to 8:15 p.m. The Mercedes Mone, Tony Storm, Mina Shirakawa ramp angle, the Young Bucks backstage promo, and the start of Swerve Strickland and Will Ospreay versus Blake Christian and Lee Johnson with picture-in-picture. 643,000 viewers.
Ouch. Okay. Not only are they back down to normal on their average, but that's one of the lower starts in recent memory, is it not?
It's considerably off the trend, which is slightly above 700,000. So yes, it is.
But in looking at it in a positive light, they're not going to drop as far as normal. They can't.
Well, we go to quarter 2, 8:15 to 8:30 p.m. Continuation of Swerve and Ospreay versus Blake and Lee. The post-match with the Young Bucks. A recap. An ad break. The Young Bucks and Don Callis family backstage angle. And the start of Trent Beretta versus Kota Ibushi. 576,000 viewers.
Wow. Okay. That is 2460. That's 67,000. It's not as much as they usually lose from 1 to 2, but now they've got to come back up at some point in this show just to make their average. Or is it going to come back up now that people are convinced the Bucks are off their screen, or what?
Well, we go to quarter 3, 8:30 to 8:45 p.m. The continuation of Beretta versus Ibushi, the post-match with Okada, the Jon Moxley backstage promo, an ad break, and the AR Fox Ricochet backstage angle.
Good Lord.
608,000 viewers.
Well, they're doing everything they can to run the people off, but they got back 32,000 again. Okay, we're safe from the Buckaroos now? Was that the thought?
I don't know. We go to quarter 4, 8:45 to 9 p.m. The continuation of, or actually, I guess the start of, Fox and Ricochet versus Jet Speed with picture-in-picture ads, and the Jet Speed Hurt Syndicate live angle for the start of it. 623,000 viewers.
Okay, we're going in the right direction again. Now the Hurt Syndicate are coming up. I would think that would mean maybe at the top of the hour, they're going to gain a few.
Well, you mentioned the top of the hour, the big 9 o'clock hour, quarter 5, 9 to 9:15 p.m. The continuation of Jet Speed and the Hurt Syndicate's live angle, now with Mark Brisco, and an ad break. 644,000 viewers.
And they now officially, by 1,000 people, the top of the hour at 9 o'clock is better than the first quarter. That never happens. Never happens.
I think it happened last week.
Well, then it never happens until the last 2 weeks. But think
what was
about that.
Last week? It was MJF and Mystico.
But for years, the first number was always bigger than every other number on the show by 50,000, 70,000, 100,000, whatever, because it was always in the 8s, and then it was in the 7s. Now it's in the 6. 6 is so they're not losing as much, but they're coming back and doing 1,000 people better than the start at the top of the hour, and that's not usually heard of.
Well, again, 10 million people on Max, but let's now go to quarter 6, 9:15 to 9:30 p.m. Roderick Strong versus Mark Briscoe versus Konosuke Takeshita versus Bandito with picture-in-picture 620,000 viewers.
Well, that's not as bad as it could have been. They are still, there's 2 quarters previously that were lower than that.
Well, we go now to quarter 7, 9:30 to 9:45 p.m. Adam Cole's backstage promo, Athena versus Thunder Rosa versus Willow Nightingale versus Chris Statlander.
I don't know how long I can go without seeing you.
Picture-in-picture ads, and the post-match with Marina Shafir and Wheeler Yuta. 623,000 viewers.
So they're fairly steady there in the going home stretch. We've only got 1 quarter and an overrun. Can Frank bring it home?
Well, we go now to quarter 8. I remind you, 8-minute overrun. 9:45 to 10 p.m. A recap, an ad break, the FTR and Stokely Hathaway backstage promo, and the start of the Beast Mortos versus Hangman Adam Page with picture-in-picture. 582,000 viewers. 8-minute overrun with the Bucks and the Death Riders and Will Ospreay and the Ops. 579,000 viewers.
Well, again, looking on the positive side, for the first time I can recall, quarter 8 had 6,000 more viewers than quarter 2. But then they fooled those people who had bailed out specifically so they wouldn't have to watch the Bucks, and the Bucks came back at the end. So the Bucks, the overrun, the Bucks get the 3 lowest, the 2. We'll be fair, the 2 lowest quarter hour ratings of the bunch.
It's every time. It's the Bucks and it's the Moxley stuff. If they could only find someone to program the Hurt Syndicate and MJF with that mattered, you'd have something, because they're the only thing that ever pops a number. But that was Dynamite.